Golden, Colorado, 1873. A German immigrant walks into the Rocky Mountains with $2,000 in his pocket and a dream of brewing the perfect beer. His name is Adolf Coors. Within 30 years, his brewery would control the entire Colorado market. Within 50 years, Coors would become one of America's most iconic beer brands. Within 100 years, the family would be worth billions. Then something went catastrophically wrong. By 2005, the Coors family was at war with itself. Brothers who grew up in the same mansion wouldn't speak. Cousins filed lawsuits. The family split down ideological lines so severe that some members funded organizations specifically designed to destroy what other members believed in. An $18 billion empire built on family loyalty became a cautionary tale about what happens when blood ties meet ideological warfare. This is the story of how America's most conservative brewing dynasty tore itself apart. How a kidnapping and murder created a trauma that echoed through generations. How three brothers took their grandfather's fortune and turned it into political weapons aimed at each other. This isn't just about beer. This is about legacy, ideology, and the brutal truth that sometimes the worst enemies are the ones who share your last name. Welcome inside the Coors Family War, where America's brewing dream was built, dominated, and destroyed from within. Prussian Prussia, 1847. Adolf Hermanus Coors is born into a family of brewers. At 21, he makes a decision that will change American business history. He boards a ship to America, drops the H from his last name, and becomes Adolf Coors. He doesn't speak perfect English. He doesn't have connections. He doesn't have capital. What he has is an obsession with brewing the perfect beer. Coors works in breweries across the East Coast, learning, observing, perfecting his craft. By 1872, he saved $2,000. Most immigrants would have opened a shop in New York or Chicago, not Coors. He sees something his competitors don't. The Rocky Mountains have the purest water in America. In 1873, Coors arrives in Golden, Colorado, a mining town of 1,200 people nestled in the foothills. He partners with Jacob Schuler, a local businessman. The deal is clean. Schuler puts up $18,000 for equipment. Coors provides the brewing expertise. They call it the Golden Brewery. The timing couldn't be better. Colorado is booming with miners desperate for cold beer after 12-hour shifts underground. While East Coast breweries are shipping stale beer across the country, Coors is brewing fresh product using Rocky Mountain spring water filtered through ancient granite. The difference is immediate. Coors beer tastes cleaner, crisper, purer. Word spreads. Sales climb. By 1880, the Golden Brewery is producing 17,500 barrels annually. 7 years later, Coors buys out Schuler for $15,000 and renames it Adolf Coors Company. He's 40 years old. The empire has begun. By 1890, Adolf Coors is no longer just a brewer. He's an industrialist. The company expands beyond beer into porcelain, malted milk, and ceramics. When Prohibition hits in 1920, most breweries collapse. Not Coors. Here's where the Coors family shows its genius. While competitors are shutting down, Coors pivots. The company produces near beer called Mana. They manufacture malted milk for candy companies. They expand the ceramics division. The Coors Porcelain Company becomes a major supplier of industrial ceramics, producing everything from chemical equipment to dishware. Adolf Coors dies in 1929 at age 82, falling from a 6th-floor hotel window in Virginia. The official ruling is suicide, but the family always believed it was an accident. His son, Adolf Coors Jr., takes control. When Prohibition ends in 1933, Coors is one of the few breweries still operational. While competitors scramble to rebuild, Coors immediately ramps up production. By 1940, Coors controls 35% of the Colorado beer market. Then comes World War II. Coors secures government contracts to supply beer to military bases across the West. Production explodes. The brewery runs 3 shifts, 24 hours a day. By 1945, Coors employs over 1,500 workers. Adolf Coors Jr. runs the company with an iron fist. Quality above all else, no pasteurization, no preservatives, just pure Rocky Mountain spring water, barley, and hops. The beer must be refrigerated from brewery to consumer. It's expensive, it's difficult, it's absolutely brilliant business. By 1950, Coors is selling 1.2 million barrels annually. The company doesn't advertise. It doesn't need to. The beer sells itself through word of mouth and mystique. In California, people drive to Colorado just to buy cases of Coors to bring home. Everything is falling into place. But beneath this success, something dark is approaching. February 9th, 1960. Adolf Coors, III, 44 years old, leaves his home in the Denver suburbs at 7:30 a.m., heading to the brewery. He's the grandson of the founder, son of Adolf Coors Jr., and heir to the empire. He never arrives. His station wagon is found on a bridge 12 miles from his home. The driver's side door is open. The engine is running. There's blood on the bridge. No body, no witnesses. Just a ransom note demanding $500,000. The FBI launches one of the most intensive manhunts in American history. The family pays the ransom. Nothing happens. For 7 months, the Coors family lives in hell, not knowing if Adolf III is alive or dead. September 11th, 1960. A man hunting in the mountains 40 miles south of Denver finds skeletal remains. It's Adolf Coors III. He'd been shot twice in the back and dumped in a ravine. The FBI eventually captures Joseph Corbett Jr., an escaped convict and con artist. Corbett had kidnapped Coors, murdered him almost immediately, then tried to collect the ransom anyway. Corbett is convicted and sentenced to life in prison. He serves 19 years before being paroled in 1979. He dies in 2009, never admitting guilt. Think about that for a second. The heir to a billion-dollar fortune, murdered for a ransom that was never collected. A family dynasty built over 90 years, shattered in a single morning. The kidnapping and murder of Adolf Coors III creates a trauma that will echo through the family for generations. His widow, Mary, is left to raise 4 sons alone. The oldest, Adolf Coors IV, is just 15 years old. The youngest, Joseph, is only 11. These 4 boys, Adolf IV, William, Joseph, and Jeffrey, grow up in a mansion shadowed by their father's murder. They inherit not just a fortune, but a ghost. And that ghost will haunt every decision they make for the next 50 years. 1970s. The Coors family is now in its 4th generation. Adolf Coors Jr., the company founder's son, still runs the brewery at age 84. His grandsons are entering the business, but the company they're inheriting isn't just a brewery anymore. It's a political movement. Joseph Coors, one of Adolf III's brothers, becomes the face of the company and the conservative movement. In 1973, Joseph co-founds the Heritage Foundation with $250,000 of Coors money. The Heritage Foundation becomes the most influential conservative think tank in America, shaping policy for every Republican administration from Reagan to Trump. Joseph Coors doesn't just fund conservative causes, he lives them. He sits on the board of the John Birch Society. He funds anti-union campaigns. He personally recruits Ronald Reagan to run for president. When Reagan wins in 1980, Joseph Coors is invited to the inauguration as a personal guest. The brewery follows the same philosophy. Coors refuses to recognize unions. In 1977, the AFL-CIO calls for a national boycott of Coors beer. The boycott lasts 10 years. It doesn't matter. Coors keeps growing. By 1980, Coors is the fourth largest brewery in America, producing over 12 million barrels annually. The company has expanded beyond Colorado, distributing across the West. College students in California treat Coors like contraband, smuggling cases back from Colorado road trips. Here's the thing about the Coors empire in the 1980s. It's not just successful, it's untouchable. The family controls every aspect of the business. No outside investors, no board oversight. The Coors family makes decisions, and those decisions become company policy. But the children of Adolf Coors III are now adults, and they've been shaped by trauma, wealth, and wildly different worldviews. The brewing giant is about to face its greatest threat, not from competitors, from itself. Early 1980s. The four sons of Adolf Coors III are now running different parts of the empire. Adolf IV oversees operations. William handles investments. Joseph and Jeffrey work in various capacities. On paper, they're a united front. In reality, they're heading toward civil war. Adolf Coors IV has a religious awakening in 1975 after years of alcoholism and depression following his father's murder. He becomes a born-again Christian and dedicates his life to evangelical ministry. He writes books, gives speeches, and uses his fortune to fund conservative Christian organizations. William and Joseph, the middle brothers, maintain the family's political conservatism. They continue funding the Heritage Foundation, anti-abortion groups, and conservative political candidates. Between them, they donate over $50 million to right-wing causes through the 1980s and 1990s. But Jeffrey, the youngest brother, takes a different path. Jeffrey Coors grows up watching his family's fortune fund causes he fundamentally opposes. By the 1990s, he's openly liberal. He supports environmental causes. He funds progressive organizations. In 2004, he gives money to the Kerry campaign and other Democratic candidates. The family is horrified, not disappointed, horrified. Here's where it gets wild. The Coors family isn't just splitting along political lines. They're funding organizations specifically designed to oppose each other. Adolf IV funds Focus on the Family, a conservative evangelical group opposing gay marriage. Years later, other family members will fund pro-LGBTQ organizations. Joseph funds anti-union campaigns through the Heritage Foundation. Jeffrey funds environmental groups fighting against Coors' own water usage policies. By the late 1990s, family gatherings become war zones. Brothers stop speaking. Cousins choose sides. The annual Coors family meetings, once celebrations of dynastic success, turn into hostile negotiations over company direction and political spending. Think about that for a second. An $18 billion empire held together by nothing but a last name and a beer recipe, now controlled by people who fundamentally hate what the others believe in. 2005. The beer industry is changing fast. Budweiser controls 50% of the American market. Miller has 20%. Coors, once the pride of the Rockies, has fallen to 11%. The family-controlled business model that worked for 130 years is failing. The company brings in outside consultants. The recommendation is unanimous: merge or die. In January 2005, Coors announces a merger with Molson, the Canadian brewing giant. The combined company, Molson Coors, is valued at $6 billion. The Coors family will own 35% of the new entity but lose operational control. For the first time in 132 years, outsiders will run the brewery. Some family members are relieved. They've already diversified their fortunes into other investments. The brewery is just one asset among many. But for the old guard, Joseph Coors and his allies, this is betrayal. This is surrender. The merger happens anyway. Joseph Coors dies in 2003, 2 years before the merger, at age 85. He never sees the family name reduced to half of a corporate hyphenate. Some say that was a blessing. By 2008, the Molson-Coors merger is complete. The Golden Brewery still operates, still produces beer under the Coors name. But the family's control is gone. Board meetings now include Canadians, MBAs, efficiency experts, the mystique, the legend, the dynasty, all reduced to shareholder value and quarterly earnings reports. But here's the thing about the Coors family. Losing the brewery didn't end the war. It just changed the battlefield. 2010s. The Coors name still carries weight in conservative politics. Pete Coors, Joseph's son, runs for U.S. Senate in Colorado in 2004. He loses but becomes a major Republican donor. The Heritage Foundation, co-founded with Coors money, shapes Trump administration policy. Meanwhile, Jeffrey Coors continues funding progressive causes. He donates to environmental groups fighting climate change. He supports Democratic candidates. In private, he tells friends that he's spending his inheritance undoing the damage his family caused. The irony is brutal. A family that built an empire on purity, pure water, pure ingredients, pure beer, can't maintain purity within its own bloodline. The trauma of Adolf III's murder created 4 sons who spent their fortunes fighting proxy wars through politics, religion, and ideology. By 2016, the Coors fortune has been dispersed across 4 different family branches with 4 different worldviews. They attend different churches. They support different candidates. They fund organizations that actively oppose each other. The only thing connecting them is a last name on a beer can that they no longer control. In 2020, Molson Coors announces it's dropping brewing from its corporate name, becoming simply Molson Coors Beverage Company. The symbolism is devastating. Even brewing, the word that defined the family for 147 years, is now considered outdated branding. The Coors family war offers brutal lessons about legacy, wealth, and ideology. Lesson 1. Trauma compounds through generations. Adolf Coors III was murdered in 1960. His 4 sons, traumatized by their father's death, each processed that trauma differently. 1 found Jesus, 2 found politics, 1 found opposition. The murder didn't just kill 1 man, it poisoned a dynasty for 60 years. Lesson 2. Shared wealth doesn't mean shared values. The Coors family assumed that money would keep them unified. It didn't. When ideology collides with inheritance, ideology usually wins. People will sacrifice billions to prove they're right. The Coors family proved this conclusively. Lesson 3. Control is an illusion. For 130 years, the Coors family controlled every aspect of the brewery. No outside investors, no board oversight. Then, in 2005, market forces made that control irrelevant. You can hold on to power until the moment the market decides you can't. Then, it's gone overnight. Lesson 4. Legacy isn't ownership. The Coors name still sells beer. The brewery still operates in Golden, Colorado. But the family that built it no longer controls it. Legacy isn't about owning something. It's about whether your name means what you want it to mean. For some Coors family members, their name represents conservative values and religious faith. For others, it represents everything they oppose. That's not legacy, that's tragedy. Golden, Colorado. Today, if you drive down Washington Avenue, you'll see the Coors Brewery sprawling across 400 acres. The facility still operates, still produces millions of barrels of beer annually. The name Coors still appears on cans and bottles from California to Maine. But walk into the corporate offices and you won't find many Coors family members. The company is run by Canadians and MBAs. The heritage tours mention Adolf Coors, the immigrant founder, but gloss over the family wars that followed. In 2016, Molson Coors merged again. this time acquiring S.A.B. Miller's stake in Miller Coors for $12 billion. The Coors family ownership stake was diluted to less than 10%. Most family members have sold their shares entirely, diversifying into real estate, private equity, and politics. Adolf Coors IV, now in his 70s, runs a Christian ministry and gives speeches about how his father's murder led him to Jesus. He still carries the family name but has distanced himself from the brewing business. Jeffrey Coors, the liberal black sheep, died in 2001 at age 52. His obituary mentioned his environmental work, but not his family's beer empire. The other brothers and cousins maintain low profiles, managing their inherited wealth through private foundations and investment firms. They rarely gather as a family. When they do, politics is off limits. From a German immigrant with $2,000 to an $18 billion empire to a family torn apart by ideology. 147 years from the first barrel brewed to the loss of family control. All because wealth and legacy collided with trauma, values, and the brutal truth that money doesn't keep families together. The Coors Brewery still stands. The beer still sells. But the dynasty is gone. This is what happens when empire meets ideology, when trauma meets inheritance, when brothers who shared a last name decide that their beliefs matter more than their blood. Adapt or die, unify or collapse. The market doesn't care about your legacy, and neither does ideology. Welcome to the Coors Family War, where America's brewing dynasty was built on purity, dominated the Rockies for a century, and destroyed itself from within.